When Liam's video full of fake tears and feigned victimhood started trending, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. "Sophie, is this really you?" everyone asked, their voices filled with shock and disappointment. While he was trying to destroy my reputation, the career I had painstakingly built brick by brick for years, I was silently gathering my evidence. Just minutes before my planned live broadcast the next day, his lawyer called. The panicked voice on the other end of the line pleaded, "Don't do it, Sophie. We can talk about everything." But it was too late. We had entered a path of no return, and at the end of that path, the sharp light of justice was shining. My name is Sophie Gagnon. I'm 30 years old, a content creator based in Vancouver. I've made my living inspiring people, offering them a positive outlook on life. My channel, Sophie's World, quickly reached hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and my sincerity and creativity had attracted the attention of many brands. But for Liam, my bright light was a source of discomfort that only made his own darkness more apparent. Liam and I met in our freshman year of university at a get-to-know-you party hosted by a student club. Back then, he was an ambitious film student. Hollywood dreams gleamed in his eyes, and endless script ideas flowed from his tongue. I was a naive communications student just beginning to believe in the power of words. Despite my shyness, Liam's energy had enveloped me, making me a partner in his dreams. Our hours-long conversations, our laughter, our hand-in-hand strolls through the streets of Vancouver. How innocent, how real everything seemed back then. Or so I thought. Our relationship lasted 6 years. Throughout those 6 years, I supported every project of his. I was the first to read every line he wrote, and I volunteered on the set of every short film he shot. He, on the other hand, always belittled my achievements. When Sophie's World first reached 100,000 subscribers, he had said with that condescending smile, "That's nice, darling, you found yourself a hobby." What he called a hobby soon became my full-time job and enabled me to start my own company. Liam, however, still hadn't made his big break, and he was inwardly accumulating his disappointments and jealousy. For him, I was nothing more than the successful girlfriend label, as if my success was proof of his incompetence. Our breakup happened on that rainy evening when I told him I could no longer tolerate this toxic dynamic. "Your endless negativity is draining my energy, Liam. I want to go my own way," I said. I'll never forget the look of shock on his face. He couldn't digest being rejected, especially by the girlfriend who was busy with her little hobby. That was the moment I saw the first sparks of his dark side. "You're nothing without me, Sophie. I'll prove it to you," he had said, slamming the door on his way out. I would learn the painful meaning of those words. Everything started a few weeks after our breakup. First, the harassing messages from fake profiles appearing on my social media accounts. Then, old, unpublished private photos that only the two of us knew about were shared on anonymous forums under the title Sophie Gagnon's Dirty Secrets. I was shocked. I couldn't believe he could stoop so low. My friends, my family, my business partners, everyone was shaken by these vile slanders. I called Liam. "Why are you doing this?" I asked in a trembling voice. "What are you talking about, dear? I forgot how popular you are," he had mocked. That's when I understood this was just the beginning. His revenge would be ruthless. He delivered the biggest blow with that confession video. In that trending video, Liam, in tears, was telling how I had used him, how I had cast him aside while climbing the ladder of fame, and even how I had cheated on him. Fabricated messages, voice recordings taken out of context, everything was prepared so professionally that for a moment even I would have doubted my own innocence. At the end of the video, he was crying, saying, "Don't believe Sophie Gagnon, she's not the innocent angel you see." The comments under the video had turned into a complete lynch campaign. My sponsors were pulling out one by one, and my followers were rapidly decreasing. My career, my life, was falling apart before my eyes. For the first few days, I couldn't get out of bed. I felt completely helpless, defeated. But then, I felt something break inside me. This breaking wasn't a surrender, but an awakening. I had to disrupt Liam's game. I had to shout his lies to the whole world, but I would do it not by slinging mud like him, but intelligently, with evidence. Everyone would see who Sophie Gagnon really was.
I immediately called my most trusted lawyer friend, Isabel. When I told her the situation, she empowered me by saying, "This is literally a character assassination, Sophie. But don't worry, we have every legal means to expose his lies." First, we started having digital forensics experts examine everything Liam had shared, all the fake accounts, comments, and videos. Simultaneously, we began to investigate whether Liam had engaged in similar manipulations in the past.
Soon, we started to uncover shocking details about his dark past. It turned out I wasn't his first victim. He had harassed his previous girlfriends with similar methods, trying to ruin their lives, but none of them were as much in the public eye as I was, so Liam had always managed to get away with it, but this time would be different. This time, he was facing a Sophie who was ready to risk everything. Gathering evidence took me weeks, sleepless nights, endless research, digging through old notebooks. I was collecting concrete evidence that would refute every lie Liam used against me, nullify every slander. Old threatening messages he had sent me, witness statements, even correspondence leaked from his own computer, showing how he had planned this smear campaign. Each piece of evidence was a part of my revenge puzzle. And when that puzzle was complete, Liam's fake world would come crashing down on him. The idea of a live broadcast came from Isabel. Sophie, your greatest strength is your sincerity and the bond you have with your followers. You need to address them directly. They need to hear all the facts from your own mouth, she said, and I knew it was the right way. We set the broadcast date exactly 1 month after Liam released his infamous video. During this 1-month period, I remained silent about all the false news and attacks against me. This silence was interpreted by some as an admission of my guilt, but I knew it was the calm before the storm. As the day of the live broadcast approached, the pressure on me increased. What if something went wrong? What if people didn't believe me? But then Liam's mocking smile, his fake tears would come to my mind, and the anger inside me would suppress all my fears. This was a fight not just for me, but for his previous victims, for the innocent people he might target in the future. Hours before the broadcast, I was making the final preparations in my studio. All the evidence I had collected, my presentation, everything was ready. Just then, my phone rang. It was Liam's lawyer. His voice was agitated, almost pleading. Miss Gagnon, please. Liam is very sorry. We can take everything back. Let's make a deal. We're ready to give you whatever you want. Just don't do that broadcast, he said. I smiled. So they had seen my bluff, so they had realized how solid my evidence was. On the phone, I told the lawyer, Mr. Shapiro, in a calm voice, it's too late for Liam's apologies. The time for justice has come. In an hour, all of Canada will see your client's true face. I hung up and took a deep breath. My heart was pounding as if it would break through my chest, but my mind was clear. When I faced the camera, I just looked silently at the lens for the first few seconds. Millions of people were watching me, holding their breath. They were wondering what I would say. Hello, Sophie's world, I finally said. My voice came out stronger than I expected. A lot has been said about me in the last month. A lot has been written. I remained silent because the truth has a beautiful habit of coming out. And now it's time to face those truths. And I began to tell everything from the very beginning of my relationship with Liam, from that innocent moment we met. I laid it all bare. How I supported his dreams, how my own successes were constantly belittled by him, the horrific smear and harassment campaign that began after our breakup. I conveyed every detail in a calm but firm tone. The viewers' comments were scrolling across the screen. Messages of shock, anger, and support were intermingled. Liam, I said, looking directly at the camera, I'm here to prove that everything you said in your victim video is a lie. First, I shared the screenshots of the messages he used in his video, supposedly showing me cheating on him. These are the messages Liam showed you, I said. Then, I displayed the original, unedited versions of the same conversations. And these are the real conversations. The original messages clearly showed how Liam tried to manipulate me, his jealous fits, even his threats. Cries of, oh my god, and this is too much, filled the comment section. Next, I moved on to the out-of-context voice recordings Liam presented as evidence. Liam tried to use my voice to make it seem like I was insulting him, demeaning him, I said. Then, I played the long, uncut versions of those recordings. In those recordings, it was clear how Liam had provoked me for hours, what he had said to get on my nerves, and that I was merely trying to defend myself. Many viewers commented, this is literally psychological abuse. The most crucial part was the evidence showing how Liam had planned this smear campaign step by step. The digital forensic reports Isabel had found revealed one by one how Liam had created the fake profiles and which IP addresses he had used. I even broadcast voice recordings of him talking to a friend, detailing this plan and saying, I'm going to finish Sophie, she won't find a job in the industry again. At that moment, there was a deep silence in the studio and among everyone watching me. Why did he do all this? I asked rhetorically. Because he was a narcissistic manipulator trying to cover up his own failures through me. Because he was a jealous man who couldn't stand a woman being more successful than him. Because he was a pathetic person who couldn't accept rejection. I also presented documented evidence of what Liam had done to his previous girlfriends. With their written permission, without revealing their names, I recounted the harassment they experienced, how Liam had tried to blackmail them. It turned out Liam was quite skilled at playing these dark games. Comments like, "I went through something similar," and "people like this must be stopped," increased among the viewers. This was no longer just my story, it had become a manifesto addressing a societal problem. My live broadcast lasted about 2 hours. Towards the end, I was struggling to hold back my tears, but I didn't let my voice tremble. "What I've been through, unfortunately, is not different from what many women experience," I said. "But we will not remain silent. We will not be afraid. We will be the heroes of our own stories. We will not let people like Liam darken other people's lives." Before ending the broadcast, I announced that we had initiated legal proceedings against Liam, suing him for defamation, insult, and cyberbullying. "Justice will prevail sooner or later," I said, and looking at the camera one last time, I added, "And remember, the truth always has a beautiful way of coming out. Thank you." When I ended the broadcast, I took a deep breath. It felt as if tons of weight had been lifted off my shoulders. My team in the studio was applauding. Isabel came up and hugged me. "You were amazing, Sophie. You did a perfect job," she said, her eyes welling up. My phone was flooded with congratulatory and supportive messages. Hashtags like #SophieWasRight and #TheLiamTruth were trending on social media, but what I was most curious about was Liam's reaction. What would he do? Could he still continue his lies in the face of so much evidence? I didn't have to wait long. Just half an hour after the broadcast, Liam's lawyer called again. This time his voice wasn't pleading, but panicked. He said his client was in great shock, his reputation was ruined in public, and even some of his sponsors had immediately terminated their agreements with him. "Miss Gagnon, please let's find a middle ground. Liam is ready to apologize publicly. He's ready to compensate for all your material and moral damages," he said. I smiled. Now the tables had turned. He was the one pleading now. "Mr. Shapiro," I said, "I don't know what your client's apology would mean to all the people he victimized. But for me, seeing justice served is paramount. We'll see each other in court." I hung up. The next morning when I woke up, the world seemed brighter. News sites and social media platforms were all talking about my live broadcast. Many women had started sharing their own similar stories. My story had given them courage. This was the most beautiful part of the victory. As for Liam, he had virtually vanished after my live stream. His social media accounts were closed, his phones were off, and it was said that even his closest friends couldn't reach him. A few days later, he released a public statement through his lawyer. In the written statement, he said he was sorry for causing misunderstandings, but he did not admit to any of the accusations. This was a typical Liam tactic, never taking full responsibility, but no one believed him anymore. The relief I felt right after ending the live broadcast soon gave way to an anticipation that heralded a new storm. Liam's lawyer's panicked phone call was just the tip of the iceberg. The next morning, one of Vancouver's typically misty mornings, the flood of messages on my phone and in my email inbox revealed the scale of what had happened more clearly. Media outlets were requesting interviews, brands that had previously been silent were conveying their support, and strangers were sharing their own stories with me. But what I was most curious about was how Liam would respond to this defeat. Or should I say, his inability to respond. Liam had literally gone underground. His flashy social media profiles had vanished overnight, his phones were turned off, and it was said that even his closest friends couldn't get any news from him. However, this silence wasn't the calm before a storm, it was the helpless silence of someone Narji under rubble. For the first few days, only his lawyer spoke on his behalf. Mr. Shapiro made superficial statements claiming his client was in deep sorrow and shock, was misunderstood, and his reputation was unjustly damaged. But no one believed these crocodile tears. The evidence I presented in my live broadcast was so clear, so irrefutable, that Liam's claims of innocence remained like meaningless whispers echoing in an empty room. Soon, the collapse of Liam's professional life began. First, the producers of the independent film project he hoped would be his big break announced they were terminating his contract due to his negative public image. Then, a few small local brands for which he had done advertisements quickly distanced themselves from him. On social media, wherever Liam's name was mentioned, there were sarcastic comments and angry reactions. The man once referred to as a promising young talent had now become Vancouver's most hated manipulator. His narcissistic fortress had been demolished overnight, and it seemed unlikely he could emerge from the wreckage. The legal process turned into a complete chess game. Liam's lawyers tried every delaying tactic, objected to every piece of evidence we presented, and resorted to unimaginable ways to discredit me and my witnesses. The hearings dragged on, and each new session frayed my nerves a little more. Some nights I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in bed with the fear, what if everything goes to waste? What if this man somehow gets away with it again? It was in those moments that Isabel's calm and confident demeanor gave me strength. Sophie, our evidence is rock solid. We just need to be patient and not fall for their games, she would reassure me. The courtroom was like a theater stage. Liam came to every hearing in expensive suits, surveying his surroundings with that arrogant and dismissive expression on his face. He behaved as if all this was not his fault, but as if someone had conspired against him. His lawyers dug into my private life, trying to bring my past relationships, even my family issues, to court. Their aim was clear, to wear me down emotionally and paint an unreliable image of me in the eyes of the jury. One of the hardest moments was the day Liam's lawyer cross-examined me. During the hours-long interrogation, I had to recount the most intimate details, the most painful memories, over and over again. The lawyer constantly changed his tone, sometimes sarcastic, sometimes accusatory, coming at me. I struggled to hold back my tears, but with every question he asked, I relived those painful days Liam had put me through, and the anger and quest for justice within me grew even stronger. Just when I thought I was about to give up, my eyes caught one of the jurors. She was an elderly woman with an understanding and compassionate expression in her eyes. At that moment, I felt I wasn't alone. I took a deep breath and continued to answer more forcefully. When I left the courtroom that day, I was exhausted but just as determined. I was going to win this fight. Liam's witnesses were a complete fiasco. Most of them were people from his old circle of friends, and their testimonies contradicted each other. Isabel skillfully exposed their lies and inconsistencies, reducing their credibility to zero in the eyes of the jury, particularly the so-called technical expert witness who had helped Liam edit his infamous confession video, was baffled by Isabel's questions and eventually had to confess everything. At that moment, I felt the tide of the case turning in our favor. One of the most unforgettable moments of the trial was the reading of a written statement from one of Liam's previous victims, given on the condition of anonymity. That statement revealed in all its starkness Liam's years-long manipulative and abusive behavior, how he had psychologically worn down his victims. As the statement was read, the arrogant expression on Liam's face vanished, replaced by a tense and anxious one. For the first time, he seemed to feel cornered. After months of hearings, Judgment Day finally arrived. The courtroom was packed that day. Press members, my supporters, a curious crowd, everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the judge's decision. I was sitting next to Isabel. My heart was beating as if it would jump out of my chest, but I tried to appear calm on the outside. When the judge entered the courtroom, a deep silence fell. As he began to read the verdict, time seemed to stand still. Defendant Liam Fletcher, the judge said in a firm voice, for the crimes of defamation, insult, violation of privacy, and cyberbullying against Sophie Gagnon. He paused for a moment. That brief moment felt like an eternity to me. Is found guilty. First a murmur, then a storm of applause erupted in the courtroom. I couldn't hold back my tears as Isabel hugged me. She was saying, "We did it, Sophie, we did it." Liam, on the other hand, was frozen stiff in the defendant's chair. His face was ashen, an expression of disbelief in his eyes. At that moment, I saw his arrogant mask fall completely. Before me stood only a scared, defeated, and pitiful man. Liam was sentenced to a considerable fine. He was also ordered to undergo anger management and narcissistic personality disorder treatment. Perhaps most importantly, a court order prohibited him from approaching me or his other victims. This was not just a legal victory, but also a psychological liberation. His shadow would no longer loom over us. After the trial, my life slowly began to return to normal, but nothing was the same as before. This experience had profoundly affected me, changed my perspective on life. I was now a stronger, more conscious Sophie, more aware of my own worth. I began to rebuild Sophie's world. My channel's content evolved along with me. I I was now producing not only entertaining and inspiring content, but also broadcasts raising awareness on issues like combating cyberbullying, women's rights, and psychological health. My own story had become a beacon of hope for others. Many people, thanks to me, had broken their silence and started their own fight for justice. This was the greatest reward I received. My career progressed more brilliantly than ever before. I received many national and international awards and participated as a speaker at important conferences. I was no longer seen just as a content creator, but also as an activist and an inspiration. Liam's efforts to destroy me had had the opposite effect, propelling me to even greater heights. And what about Liam? He disappeared for a long time after the court's decision. I heard he had moved in with his family in a small town far from Vancouver. All doors in the film industry had closed to him, and his circle of friends had dispersed. He was now just a bad memory from the past. A few years later, I accidentally saw his photo in a magazine article. He was unrecognizable. There was no trace of that former charismatic man. Life had taught him its most bitter lesson. Those who try to extinguish others' light will eventually drown in their own darkness. I can't say I felt sorry for him. He had reaped what he sowed. Sometimes, especially on the anniversaries of that live broadcast, I think about everything I went through, those fearful days, those sleepless nights, those endless courthouse corridors. But then I smile. Because I know that if I hadn't gone through those difficult paths, I couldn't have become the Sophie I am today. Those pains had made me stronger, wiser. My greatest revenge was being happy despite all of Liam's efforts. I had a peaceful relationship, loving friends, and most importantly, self-respect. I no longer allowed anyone to prevent me from shining. I was writing my own story by my own rules. And yes, what happened after that live broadcast was a long and arduous journey, but in the end, I had reached that satisfying, cold, yet oh so sweet victory of justice, and this victory was not just mine, but the victory of all the silent screams, like mine, that had suffered injustice. I hope Sophie Gagnon's story gives others the strength to seek their own justice, because remember, even the darkest night has a morning.